You're watching an NDTV breaking news. It appears that even 6 hours before the cabinet expansion of the Modi government, we already have an idea now of the slate of new names that will be sworn in today at 6 p.m. because many of them are on their way or have already reached the Prime Minister's residence at Lok Kalyan Marg. And that is giving us an idea of who is going to be in the new cabinet. Amit Shah, who's the number 2 in the government, Home Minister, has also reached the Prime Minister's residence, presumably to welcome these new entrants. Let me go across to my colleague Arvind Gunasekar, who's been tracking the big names. Arvind, right now on the screen, we obviously see Jyotiraditya Scindia, who is, of course, widely tipped to join the cabinet. Take us through some of the other names that have come to the Prime Minister's residence or are on their way.
Yeah, also after calls from Prime Minister's residence, senior MPs who are likely to be inducted into the new cabinet have started reaching Prime Minister's residence. If you could see the names, 3 MPs from Maharashtra, Narayan Rane, Kapil Patel, Bhagwat Karath, all 3 from Maharashtra have reached Prime Minister's residence. Also, Jyotiraditya Scindia, one name that was reported right from day one as a probable for the new ministership. He has also reached Prime Minister's residence. And also Ajay Bhatt, an MP from Uttarakhand, has also reached Prime Minister's residence. Apart from this, Meenakshi Lekhi, an MP from National Capital, she has also reached Prime Minister's residence. From Karnataka, Shobha, who is an MP, a loyalist of Yediyurappa, has also reached Prime Minister's residence. So these are the names, some big names that have reached. And also Anupriya Patel from Uttar Pradesh, who is one long ally of BJP. She has also reached Prime Minister's residence. So apart from the probable inductees into the new cabinet, senior BJP leaders, also National President JP Nadda and also BL Santosh and also Amit Shah, who's Home Minister, they have also reached Prime Minister's residence. What the officials are claiming is that it's a high tea, it's a customary high tea meeting with the Prime Minister before the swearing-in ceremony. So right from here, all the new inductees will go to their own respective residence, post which the swearing-in ceremony will happen at President's Secretariat at somewhere around 6 p.m. So all the probable candidates who will be inducted into the new cabinet, they have started coming here. So with the list, almost 7 to 8 names that we have got to confirm. But what we are being told is at least a dozen will be inducted into the new cabinet. But again, we have to wait for the official list.
Okay, let me just recap. My colleague Sukirti Dwivedi also joining me from New Delhi. Let me just recap the list of names, some of which Arvind has read out and some of which our other colleagues like Akhilesh Sharma and Manish Kumar from Patna are also feeding into this growing list. It has come to the rough count I have done already close to a dozen names. So you have Anupriya Patel, of course, who's one of the BJP's allies in Uttar Pradesh, Apna Dal, Jyotiraditya Scindia, recent joining, Narayan Rane, as you mentioned, from Maharashtra, Kapil Patel, who's an MP from Bhiwandi near Mumbai, Bhagwat Karath, who's a Rajya Sabha MP from Aurangabad. Hina Gavit's name also has been mentioned by our colleague Akhilesh Sharma. She's an MP from Maharashtra as well. She's the daughter of the late Congress tribal leader Manik Rao Gavit. Ajay Bhatt, as you mentioned, BJP leader from Uttarakhand. Ajay Mishra is also on the list apparently. Shobha Karandlaje, who you mentioned, she's a BJP MP from Karnataka, and as you mentioned, someone close to Yediyurappa. And Meenakshi Lekhi, BJP MP from New Delhi. She's been a prominent spokesperson of the party, now possibly getting rewarded with a cabinet berth. Sarbanand Sonowal also, I think, Arvind, you and others have mentioned, who, of course, gave up his chief ministerial post in Assam and is getting rewarded for that. And also our colleague Manish Kumar saying that Pashupati Paras, the brother of late Ram Vilas Paswan, who broke from the LJP and broke from Chirag Paswan, and he, in all probability, is also going to be inducted today. So, Sukirti, already we have close to a dozen names, but it appears that we may also, as Arvind mentioned, see more members of the BJP as well as its allies and inductees heading for Racecourse Road.
Well, absolutely, yes, Vasu, because on one hand, some people who were on the list of probables, Pashupati Kumar Paras, he is yet to reach the PM's residence. He's yet to leave his home and reach there. Has been a very controversial name so far because, of course, he comes from the LJP, and Mr. Chirag Paswan has already made it clear that he will approach the courts if his uncle gets a position in the cabinet. On the other hand, we are also hearing these new names, as my colleague Arvind Gunasekar just pointed out, that Meenakshi Lekhi has has received a call. She's also going to be on the list of people who might make it to the cabinet. She's never been a minister before. She's a two-time MP from the New Delhi constituency. She won in 2000, even in the latest New Delhi elections, she won it from there. She's a Supreme Court lawyer, started a political career somewhere around 2010 from the BJP's women's wing, and is a prominent name when it comes to Delhi politics because she's a two-time MP from here. So she is among the new names that are popping up, and at this point of time, definitely many of the names that have been going on for 24 hours yet to reach the PM's residence, and many others new names also coming up and might make it to the cabinet.
Right. Okay. Because at the moment, I'm just counting some of the women's names that have so far been sort of flashed by all of you as heading to the Prime Minister's office or likely to be sworn in. And already, because remember, this is something that even before the cabinet, the government sources were putting out that you're going to see a high representation of young people, high representation of women. This could be the youngest cabinet ever, is what government sources claiming. Already we're seeing, I've counted at least 5 women. Shobha Karandlaje, Sunita Duggal, our colleague Akhilesh Sharma has just flashed. She's a BJP MP from Sirsa in Haryana. Meenakshi Lekhi, Anupriya Patel and Hina Gavit. These are all also, by the way, relatively young by the standards of Indian politics. So already you're starting to see a younger face, more women in this particular round of swearing in. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I believe Smita Prakash is on with us. If someone could confirm if indeed she is. Yes, she is on with us. Thank you very much indeed, Smita Prakash. Good morning to you. Joining us, editor, head of ANI, Aarti Jayarat, veteran journalist, is also with us. Smita Prakash, your first comments on the names that we're seeing, some of course expected like Jyotiraditya Scindia, Anupriya Patel and so on, but also quite a few names that hadn't really started doing the rounds. Kapil Patil, Ajay Mishra, Ajay Bhatt, Sunita Duggal and so on.
Correct. I think it's going to be some kind of a mix between experience, expertise and some new blood, people who will bring new ideas to the table, out of the box ideas, so that, you know, the government doesn't, or the party doesn't have the image of being a flabby, old, traditional, conventional, but somebody or a party which is on the move, which has new ideas. Because see, when the party is heading towards the second half of the second term, yes, because you already finished 2 years, now you're heading into election mode in various states. So I guess they don't want to give the impression of being fuddy-duddy and old ideas driven. So that's why the new people who are coming in, and there was this talk about technocrats who will be brought in into the cabinet, who will have new ideas and get the economy back on track, because that is going to be the focus of the Modi government: job creation, getting new ideas about how the reforms will actually be put into action. But then you also have a mix of people who have had experience and have been benched for quite a while, who are going to be brought in, like whether it is Meenakshi Lekhi or Scindia or any of these people who've been sitting and waiting for their turn quietly. But also the interesting part, I think, Vasu, is also about how everybody has kept their names silent, and you've got all the reporters at all the houses of these people who are probably going to be ministers in a couple of hours, but not a word spoken to the TV cameras.
Right. Yes, I think that's something which is a very hard line that we've seen, except for people like Mr. Paras, I think, who was filmed famously shopping for new kurtas for the swearing in. But Aarti Jayarat, any cabinet expansion or reshuffle, as we know, is a mix of political accommodation, social engineering, and you obviously have to try and do some course correction when it comes to governance. Looking at the initial roster of names so far, what do you make of it? On the face of it, it does seem to be accommodating a lot of people like Sarbanand Sonowal, Jyotiraditya Scindia, etc., Anupriya Patel, who, as Smita mentioned, have been hopefuls for a pretty long time. Is there anything at the moment which is startling you, surprising you?
No, Vasu, I think that, there is an attempt to do all the three things that you mentioned. Obviously, there is a fair degree of political accommodation, keeping the UP polls in mind, which is why we're hearing the names of Anupriya Patel, Raj Bhar. You know, these are all caste groups that are important for the UP polls.
Right.
You know, where, you know, Yogi has somehow managed to create the impression that it's Thakur Raj, and that has kind of created fissures in the BJP's social engineering alliance, you know, with which they won the polls in 2017.
But, you
so
know,
I think there is an attempt on to repair that.
But you know, just to jump in for a second, interestingly, that's what everyone assumed, that there'll be a heavy bench strength from Uttar Pradesh this time. At the moment, if you look at it, barring Anupriya Patel, maybe a name or two I may have missed, but right now there seems to be a strong presence of Maharashtra, interestingly enough. Even though Maharashtra is not poll bound, you've got Narayan Rane, you've got Kapil Patil, you've got Bhagwat Karad and Hina Gavit.
Yeah, I know. But before we get on to Maharashtra, I did see you flash the names of Rita Bahuguna Joshi, you know, Raj Bhar. These are all, you know, candidates from UP, if of course they become, you know, sort of ministers.
Sure.
Yes, but the Maharashtra contingent, the heavy Maharashtra contingent is very, very interesting, because I think it shows that the BJP is still hoping to, you know, get Maharashtra back. You know, I don't know whether this is aimed at sending a signal to the Shiv Sena that look what you're missing out on.
Right.
You know, you could have been here, these could have been your people. Or it is also sending a message out to Maharashtra that, you know, look what Maharashtra is missing out on by not having a BJP government in Maharashtra.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that, you know,
interestingly enough,
very key to the BJP's politics.
Maharashtra, you're absolutely right. Maharashtra is very key, but interestingly, the one Maharashtra name who's missing from this roster is Devendra Fadnavis, because the whole sort of assumption was that Fadnavis would shift to Delhi and that would sort of consolidate this BJP Shiv Sena deal, because Uddhav's main bugbear would be out of the picture. But then the BJP came out and categorically said that's not going to happen. Fadnavis himself came out and said, I'm not going to shift, which is very unusual for a BJP leader to say that. So, in that sense, you know, that particular supposed deal never took place. But Smita, let me also get you to comment now on some specific, again, interesting names. As we mentioned, quite a large chunk from Maharashtra at the moment. But also, Smita, Shobha Karanlaje, you know, that's another name which hadn't really been doing the rounds.
No, I think Shobha Karanjale's name has been doing the rounds for quite some time, because Karnataka is, you know, there is kind of an unrest out there. She is known to be close to the Chief Minister, and the Chief Minister is facing a lot of rebellion in Karnataka. Karnataka BJP unit itself, I mean, imagine when the Chief Minister's supporters are going and raising slogans in front of the car of one of the rebel leaders.
Yeah.
So what the BJP doesn't want now is a breakup of the BJP unit in Karnataka because of the caste factor.
Right.
So I think Shobha Karanjale being brought in is somewhat to placate the Chief Minister. Maybe Yediyurappa is on his way out. You know, or they are trying to make some kind of an arithmetic out there whereby they can keep the power center going in Karnataka.
Right.
Same as Maharashtra, I guess, when you talked about Fadnavis not being brought in, I think it is quite clear that, you know, when the BJP is with its allies, it makes it quite clear who the big brother is.
Right.
So you have to, as an ally, you will be accommodated, but you will have to play the game of the larger constituent, which is the BJP.
Correct.
So they tried this, you know, I think there is also a walk back a little bit with Apna Dal, but as Aarti pointed out, or as you pointed out, in fact, interesting that UP doesn't find too much of a representation in the cabinet so far with the names that are coming out.
At the moment, because remember, the Prime Minister has wiggle room to fill at least 30 berths, because the cap is 81, as we know, and the current strength of the cabinet is somewhere just over 50. So he has wiggle room to go up to 30. We'll have to wait and see what that final number amounts to. But a couple of quick big picture points on where we stand so far with these names. One, it does seem to be clearly a somewhat younger roster of names. If I don't know if both of you agree with that. There does seem to be quite a few women. Already, as I mentioned, I counted 5 out of 11 names, or 11 names, 5 are women. So that's, you know, that's a good sign. But again,
You
just
know,
big
I
picture.
think,
Yes.
Vasu, I think what the Prime Minister is trying to do is recapture the appeal of 2014. You know, when he came in on this plank of Achhe Din, of course. But, you know, more than that, he represented at that point of time a modern, forward-looking vision, moving away from this old fuddy-duddy Congress which had ruled for 60 years and really led the country nowhere.
Yeah.
And here was Narendra Modi with new ideas, new blood, and giving a lot of space to women. You remember at that time, I mean, he, inducted Sushma Swaraj as a foreign minister. And so for, the first time you had a woman in this all-powerful CCS. Which is the most important, cabinet committee.
Yes.
So, I think there was, and that somehow has dissipated, that messaging has dissipated over the last 7 years.
Okay.
Yes, because
so that's
of,
one
all
signal.
the activities of the RSS and so on, which
Right.
seem to have taken the country back, rather than forward.
Also,
so I
just
think
to
he's
quickly
trying
update,
to do a course correction of that.
right. Also, just to quickly update, Bhupendra Yadav, who's of course been a political point person for the BJP, now firefighter for long, has also reached the Prime Minister's residence. So there's, in all likelihood, he's going to be brought into the government. So that's another big name in the roster of names. But again, just stepping back and looking at what's the signal coming out of this, as both of you have mentioned, there does appear to be a signal to say that, look, we're trying to present a younger, less fuddy-duddy sort of image. But at the same time, are these dramatic changes? Because remember, Smita, the areas which have felt the most pressure in recent times has been the economy and health. And that's where really, if we are going to see any changes, one could say that this is going to be a significant shuffling of the decks. What's your take on that? You think Nirmala Sitharaman will stay? Will Dr. Harshvardhan stay?
Well, I think the big four will stay. I don't think Mr. Modi is going to have much wiggle room out there. The four will stay, but then I don't know really about health. It's possible that Dr. Harshvardhan gets a second and a third person to assist him for his portfolio, because he is handling, I think, 2 portfolios, if I'm not mistaken. So he might get 2 more people, MOSs or whatever with him, because COVID isn't going anywhere for the next year. At least the battle against COVID and then getting the health sector organized, especially in the tier 2, tier 3 and in the semi-urban and rural areas. So I think that focus will certainly be there for the Modi government. What was their second question? Sorry.
Well, I was asking about Nirmala Sitharaman and Dr. Harshvardhan. As you mentioned, the big four are unlikely to be touched, which is, of course, Home, Defense, External Affairs and Finance. And Dr. Harshvardhan, so there's been all this buzz about Devi Shetty. I don't know if you've been, in this talk that we'll be inducting technocrats, professionals. Devi Shetty, could he be India's new health minister?
Yeah.
We don't know if that's going to happen yet.
He's an amazing person.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, if there is a team of doctors, who are going to be empaneled to have regular meetings with the health minister, with the government, to put in practice what I just said, health sector to be boosted in tier 2, tier 3, semi-urban and rural areas. If they put Devi Shetty and 3-4 other doctors, I don't want to name the doctors, it would be a phenomenal thing for them to do, similar to what they should be doing in economy, to get these technocrats. There is another view to it that it's not necessary that technocrats work very well with bureaucracy. There itself there is dichotomy in that, but if that happens and if they can get a crack team going on all these issues, they would have got a lot.
Okay, I believe my colleague Himanshu Shekhar is also joining us from the Prime Minister's residence. Himanshu, just take us through, we've got some roster of names already. Take us through who else has been arriving there, what are you hearing and seeing?
Well, more than 16 leaders have come here, that I can confirm. And this, of course, is a first indication that this is going to be a very, very big cabinet expansion exercise that Prime Minister has planned. And this, of course, includes, the list is long and we've been reporting for last 1 hour on the names that have gone inside. I'm at RCR now and I have not seen this scene for almost 4-5 years. You can see the large number of cars which are now parked here, and this belongs to the cavalcade of those leaders who have been invited by the Prime Minister to come and meet him. And the list, of course, the cars here, up to more than a kilometer long line of the VVIP cars which have come at PM residence. Normally, we rarely come to this place, but this time, today, you can see Amit Shah's cavalcade is also behind me, and there are hundreds of cars here, and this, of course, belongs to the cavalcade of these more than 16 leaders who have come here to meet the Prime Minister. This is, of course, a very big cabinet expansion exercise, and as we know that this has been the Corona crisis, has been the most challenging part of Prime Minister's political career. And we have seen the government struggle throughout this period in last 16 to 17 months. And this big cabinet expansion exercise is clearly the first important step Prime Minister has taken to...
Yeah, so, you know, on the point of it being a big exercise, remember that also this was long pending because of the fact that you had the unfortunate demise of leaders, you had allies like the Akali Dal and Shiv Sena leave. So there were a lot of empty seats in the bench. And that's why the strength of the cabinet had come down to 50. So you had to fill it. In that sense, this was also more a function of inevitability. And again, to put it in perspective, if you're saying so far there are 16 names, that's a considerable amount of names. But that's still much less than the full strength of the cabinet, which is 80. So from 50, you'll go to about 66. And that's probably where it will be unless they go on adding more and more names as the day progresses. But just to recap, Himanshu, let me just run through the names that you and others have been reporting, and you can tell me if I have left anything out. So from what I understand, Bhupendra Yadav, senior BJP National General Secretary is there. So he's likely to join the cabinet. Jyotiraditya Scindia is there. Meenakshi Lekhi of the BJP, Sarbanand Sonowal, Shobha Karandlaje, Narayan Rane, Kapil Patil, Bhagwat Karad, Hina Gawat. This is all the Maharashtra contingent. Ajay Bhatt, Ajay Mishra, and also Anupriya Patel. These are the names that are there. Sunita Duggal, also a somewhat lesser known BJP MP from Sirsa and Haryana, is also there. So this is the broad roster of names. Himanshu, have I left anybody out?
Yes, Pashupati Paras has also left his residence. He's expected to reach here any time. And because I think there is a great rush here, it's becoming difficult for reporters also to identify the leaders. Because once they go, when they come out, only then we can confirm that these are leaders who have met the Prime Minister. There is also one very important aspect about the representation of the JDU. Remember in 2019, the day Prime Minister took oath, we kept on reporting till the last minute that JDU might join. But at the last moment, Nitish Kumar decided that JDU will not join the government because only one cabinet berth was offered to the party. 2 years later, Nitish Kumar has again authorized RCP Singh to initiate discussions, and this time also JDU is insisting that the proportional representation system must be implemented by the Prime Minister, and that would mean JDU gets 4 out of the 16 MPs that they have. Will the Prime Minister agree to this demand of Nitish Kumar? We do not know. What we do know is,
at the moment,
in last 24 hours, after several rounds of discussions and deliberations, JDU has moved closer to joining the government, but the picture is not clear how many JDU MPs will actually join the government.
Right, because right now there's no one from the JDU who's turned up. So that still seems to be in negotiation, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. All right, let's just get...
That's right, and that is why I think the picture will become clear in next 1 hour or so.
Okay, let's just get last quick comments from our panel before we take a break. That also news coming in, Aarti and Smita, that Anurag Thakur, Purushottam Rupala and GK Reddy might be upgraded from MOS's Minister of States. They may become full-time ministers. But Aarti, again, coming back to it, that apart from the optics and the sort of cosmetic dressing of any reshuffle, the fact is that if you're not going to make the tough choices where you have seen the government under stress, economy, the economic, charges of economic mismanagement, charges of bungling our COVID response, if you're not going to address health, you're not going to address finance, then what really is the big signal?
No, absolutely. Vasu, if you just step back a bit, to the year 2012, when the Manmohan Singh government was kind of drowning in this corruption scandals, you know. Anna Hazare had launched his movement and so on and so forth. And in an effort to shore up his image, boost the image of his government, he did this big bang cabinet expansion, if you remember, brought in 17 ministers, promoted a lot of young ministers to senior positions, gave them independent charge and so on and so forth. Again, you know, an attempt at image correction and to try and, you know, beat back this, you know, corruption, you know, taint. But in the end, it didn't work, you know, because the corruption scandals kept coming and the government's performance was actually getting worse and worse. You know, it sort of went into policy paralysis and it never came out of it.
Right.
So, you know, it's all very well to do this window dressing and to send out these messages and everything. But at the end of the day, it is the performance of the government that will determine whether the messaging that he's doing today, you know, is actually, you know, sort of reaching somewhere, or whether this is just, you know, one of those exercises that prime ministers keep doing to boost their image and then, you know, it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
And, you know, you're absolutely right. These are the two key areas he needs to address: health and, you know, the economy. I do not think he's going to change the ministers, because changing the ministers would be an admission that, you know, of failure, that something has gone wrong. And I don't think that is the nature of this prime minister, you know. In fact, he still feels that we've done a great job on COVID. He still feels that the economy is, you know, sort of doing a great job. And, you know, we will recover. So, you know, he will just have to boost, you know, these sectors from outside by creating committees or teams of advisors or so on, but not changing the ministers.
Okay. So nothing, so more cosmetic than surgical. Also, it appears from one of our reporters, Saurabh Shukla, reporting that in fact there is somebody from the JDU at the Prime Minister's residence, RCP Singh, who is of course, you know, Rajya Sabha MP and who's been in touch with the government. So he is there. So at the moment there seems to be one JDU inductee. The total list of names has now come to 17. So that's already quite a sizable roster of names that we're likely to see. Also, Smita, you know, the government yesterday announced that there'll be a new Ministry of Cooperation, which they claimed as quote-unquote historic. Essentially, as we know, this was a department under the Department of Agriculture. This has been upgraded, and obviously the government wants to talk it up. In all probability, this seems like a move to try and accommodate one of these leaders, either an ally or a new inductee. Points, you
know, I don't know. I don't know about whether that is the case. I think what has happened is because of the farm laws backlash, I think they really want to get this going to make sure that these laws are implemented, at least to begin with, in all the BJP states, and then going forward with that. It's possible that Anurag Thakur might get bumped up and get that. I disagree that if they change ministers, that means that admitting a fault or admitting that those ministers were not capable in their ministries and hence they were moved. I think there's been a lot of you know, analysis being done on the performance levels of these ministers and where their core strengths are, and they will be shifted you know, to various ministries knowing their thing. What you mentioned about being a large cabinet, remember this government talked about minimum government and maximum governance, and the criticism about the UPA was that they had so many ministers and they couldn't really do anything. It was a cosmetic thing, but there is a difference, right? When those people, when the UPA had to bring in the ministers, there were several factors involved. There was, you know, there were two power centers there. So both power centers had to accommodate their loyalists and had to bring in. Dr. Manmohan Singh really did not have that much say in cabinet formation as Modi has. Modi and Amit Shah practically have a blank check when they can who they appoint. I don't think even the allies can pinpoint
I wanted to ask you about
appoint.
that actually.
Yeah,
that point you made about, I was going to ask you that question because again on the point about, as you said, the idea of minimum government and maximum governance, this is actually going back to a conventional, you know, heavily packed, large, this is again big government. And in fact, you've added a fresh ministry. If you remember, in 2014, the Prime Minister had said that we will be actually scaling down, we will be in fact merging ministries and decreasing. You've actually brought in this Ministry of Cooperation, so you actually have one more ministry. So how is this minimum government?
Yeah, I never believed. Exactly. I never believed in that concept of minimum government and maximum governance. It doesn't work. We are 1.3 billion people where resources are still controlled by the government. So how do you use those resources judiciously if you do not have the people to do it? Just a minimum, I mean, just for example, just think of the Ministry of External Affairs. It is so there are so few people, running so many things. So, everything, even agriculture. Agriculture used to be given to, allies just to accommodate them. When you have about 60% of your people who are dependent on agriculture, you really cannot do that kind of governance with a minimum government. It doesn't work. Even spending, I feel, when they say that, oh, government should spend less, we should make austerity measures and not spend, it doesn't work. When the resources are controlled by the government, you have to spend.
Okay, so you're saying that that concept in itself was never clear. But Aarti, as we start to wrap up on this segment, just wanted to get your take on one important factor which we are missing on all this, that in a sense, you look at this cabinet expansion and obviously, everyone's reporting on it, but largely in governments which are highly centralized, like the present government is, where essentially most decision making is vested in just between one or two leaders, the rest of the cabinet, frankly, doesn't really matter. I mean, it's often said that it's hard-pressed for people to remember the names of many of the ministers in the Modi cabinet as you go, further down the hierarchy of power. Is that also going to change? I think that's going to be interesting to see, that apart from just packing benches with names and young people and women, is Mr. Modi going to adopt a less centralized approach to decision making?
I doubt it. If you look at him, through his years in Gujarat, everything was centralized in the CMO, and that's the way he's functioned here in Delhi as well. And I think that's the way he likes to function. What you may see, and that is why I think that this, this cabinet expansion reshuffle is more about messaging. Political messaging, as I said, trying to do a course correction to recapture the appeal of 2014, which, has dissipated, in the run-up to the UP elections and, of course, the big election in 2024. So it's really about messaging rather than, anything else. I think the way of functioning will continue. And I think, what the Prime Minister is likely to do rather than change the big ministers, Smita talked about there's nothing wrong in shifting ministers. I was talking about the big ministers, the ones who have been, I do not think there will be a change in the finance ministry, for instance. I think Nirmala Sitharaman has settled down and she seems to be getting on well with the PM. So they've established, kind of working equation. Why should the Prime Minister disrupt that? And I don't think that, I don't know about Harshvardhan because, there has been a lot of criticism. But, again, it would, considering that the government is boasting about its COVID management and is offering help to other countries, on how it's handled the pandemic, if you change the health minister, then you would be saying that, no, actually, we did a bad job of, COVID management. But yes, there are many ministers who have two portfolios. And those will be, many of them will be divested. Ravi Shankar Prasad, Piyush Goyal, to mention just a couple of names of people who have two portfolios. So they will be divested of one portfolio to accommodate these. But this is about political messaging, Vasu. I don't see the Prime Minister changing his style of functioning.
Okay. All right, we'll have to take a break. Before we do that, let's just go to the, we've got on screen the formal invitation. Let's go full frame on that. So this is the formal invitation to the Shapath Grahan Samaroh or the swearing in ceremony at 6 p.m. at Rashtrapati Bhavan, ahead of which already, as I said, we've got a sense of a bulk of the ministers and leaders who are going to be joining the Modi cabinet. We'll take a short break and come back. We'll be tracking this big story on NDTV.